Ladies and gentlemen, please everybody give the warmest welcome to Miss Joni Mitchell.
Blonde hair, a long silhouette, a guitar, and thousands of spectators waiting. A few notes resound and a youthful generation awakens.
Oh, California, coming home. Gonna make me feel good, rock and roll band. I'm your biggest fan, California, coming home.
Her voice will personify this generation and mark a turning point in American culture. She won't stop singing for more than 50 years. Lyrics that evoke laughter, tears, sobs, love, or pain. A lifetime's worth of memories.
I think because men need to solve things and to come to conclusions. The sus chord, there's a law that Wayne Shorter told me, never stay on a sus chord too long, never go from a sus chord to a sus chord. Well, I know I'm going from a sus chord to a sus chord to a sus chord, you know, chords of inquiry, because my life was full of questions. When are they going to drop the big one? Where's my daughter? You know, like there were so many unresolved things in me that those chords suited me, and you know, like I'd stay in unresolved emotionality for days and days. Maybe I never really loved. I guess that is the truth. I spent my whole life in clouds.
In her album, Clouds, she'll release the song Both Sides Now that will launch her career and define her style. Introspective, poetic, and completely new to the folk scene of the late 1960s.
Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way.
In the 6th grade, I was pinning up some drawings for a parent-teacher day when a new teacher, Kratzman, came up to me and said, "You like to paint?" I said, "Yes." "If you can paint with a brush," he said, "you can paint with words. I'll see you next year."
Oh, I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all.
One morning in 1967, Joni Mitchell, her guitar under her arm, leaves her home in Canada to try her luck in the United States. She was done working jobs as a waitress, and with the shanty towns of Saskatoon, where she played her ukulele, singing covers of Judy Collins songs. She leaves everything behind, modest parents and a husband, keeping only his name, Mitchell, and heads for Greenwich Village, where the greatest performers in the folk scene meet every night. There, she frequents the city's trendy clubs and meets her idols, Judy Collins and most notably, Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan inspired me with the idea of the personal narrative. He would speak as if to one person in a song, you know, like, you got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend, you know. I mean, nobody had ever written anything like that in song form, you know, such a personal, strong statement. And his influence was to personalize my work. I feel this for you or from you or because of you.
That was the key. Okay, this opens all the doors. Now we can write about anything.
Joni Mitchell starts to make a name for herself and attracts the attention of the pop princess Judy Collins, who's in search of a new song, and calls Joni one evening on the phone to ask her to improvise a tune for her. Joni Mitchell hums the first notes of Both Sides Now. Won over, Judy Collins chooses to sing the song on stage and launches this young, unknown Canadian singer's career.
I thought I would talk a little bit through the concert about the music that is being written by other people that I sing, since I have always been a bit of an interpreter of other people's songs, now of my own, but not always. And both of these songs, the first one and this one, are by a wonderful writer from the States named Joni Mitchell.
When Judy Collins sang, I looked at life from both sides now.
It's clouds, illusions I recall.
Clouds, illusions. We had never used words like that in songs, and so we discover a new songwriter named Joni Mitchell.
Thanks to this song, Judy Collins wins the Grammy Award for Best Folk Performance in 1968. From then on, Joni Mitchell is the talk of the town. One night, the leader of the Byrds, David Crosby, after being recently ousted from the group, discovers young Joni Mitchell singing her version of Both Sides Now. He immediately decides to take her under his wing.
Walked into a coffee house in Florida. She was singing. I'd never heard anybody play like her. I'd never heard anybody sing like her. And I most especially never heard anybody write like her. And I still haven't heard anybody write like her. For about a year after that, we stayed together. It was good.
Joni Mitchell hits the road, headed for Los Angeles for the first time, trading the streets of New York for winding canyons. She travels in a convertible alongside David Crosby, blasting music as they go.
So I gotta get the world off my back somehow. Leave. I'm sitting here thinking about the point.
David Crosby, the former star of the Byrds, is looking for new musicians with whom to form a band. He returns to Los Angeles to join up with Stephen Stills, who has just separated from Buffalo Springfield, the band in which a certain Neil Young has made his debut. Crosby and Stills are quickly joined by Englishman Graham Nash, who resigned from the group The Hollies.
I grew up and looked around me and I saw that the world was in a mess. Thousands of people.
The three of them would leave their mark on 60s pop, developing a new sound that will become synonymous with their names, Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Stephen and I both had the same thought, which rarely happens. We both thought, we know what we're going to be doing.
I heard that sound, and that's what I wanted. I wanted that sound. And I left everything. I left the Hollies, I left my band, I left my family, and I went to America.
Through them, young Joni Mitchell discovers West Coast music, characterized by the free spirit that permeates California. They all live in a community of hippies who have chosen to live at the top of a winding hillside known as Laurel Canyon. The canyon is inhabited by talented young musicians who all play with each other, meet at each other's houses for parties, and who will come to define California's musical identity without even knowing it. David Crosby introduces the young Canadian to all his musician friends, his Canyon family, as he called it. Graham Nash, Stephen Stills, the Mamas and Papas, the Doors and Jim Morrison, Neil Young, Frank Zappa, the Turtles, and Carole King. One evening during a legendary party hosted by singer Mama Cass, Joni Mitchell makes her debut in front of this small audience with her latest song, Just Like Me.
I took her around to people that I knew already loved music, loved singer-songwriters. And I said, listen to this. And I'd roll them a joint, get them high, and sit down and ask Joni to play. And the word spread pretty much like wildfire.
And so, the Joni Mitchell style is born before their very eyes. In the front row, Eric Clapton can't take his eyes off of her. He's never heard anything like this before. He listens as she covers one of his first songs, Song to a Seagull, on the guitar.
My harmony, because they open tunings, I have 50 different tunings. I don't play in standard tuning on the guitar. The reason that I chose that, because the harmony that I hear in my head, which it comes out on the piano, I don't have a very facile left hand. So to simplify my left hand, I changed into these tunings. Now the joke all through the 60s was, if I was over at somebody's house and I picked up their guitar, of course I'd throw it into a tuning, they'd pick it up after me and they'd go, ah, the Martians have been here, or, you know, oh, Joni's weird tunings. The harmony was not enjoyable to a lot of people. It was strange to a lot of people. To me, it was a diagram of my emotions, which were complex.
This is exactly what David Crosby immediately spotted in Joni Mitchell, and what made him want to produce her first album, Song to a Seagull, in 1967, and launch her career.
I did produce her first record, but I didn't do that great a job. The only thing I did right was to keep almost everything off of it. Keep it to just Joni and the song.
And not having studied music, when I reinvented the wheel. So, like being self-taught, I went, oh, if you too many of them and it gets uninteresting again, but then if you suddenly break to a major or minor, it's like a good short story. You know, the character goes through a change. I mean, it truly is a change, you know, that's more like what I feel inside. I'm born the week of depth on the day of the discoverer with this need to find something that sounds, it's exciting to me to find something that sounds fresh.
Even in this first album, her poetic style is clear, particularly in the song Marcy.
David Crosby once told me that if I ever ran across Joni Mitchell in my travels, to introduce myself, because he thought that we would get on. And get on we did.
She'll not only find musical inspiration in these hills, but also her first true love, Graham Nash. Together, they'll form the couple of the canyon. Joni paints her lover while he immortalizes their love in the song he writes for her, Our House, in which he sings these words to her, "And now everything is easy 'cause of you," depicting everyday scenes like a fire in the fireplace, flowers in a vase, and two cats in the yard, as a symbol of their story.
Clash of, I want to get as close to you as possible, leave me alone, to create.
On some nights, if you listen to the rattles of your own head, it's more linguistically colorful or eccentric than other nights. I had sworn my heart to Graham in a way that I didn't think was possible for myself. And he wanted me to marry him. I had agreed to it.
It was a telegram, and it only said, if you hold sand too tightly in your hand, it will run through your fingers. And that was a shame, but that's the way things are.
The singer feels she needs freedom, she concludes their love affair with the song My Old Man, writing the following lyrics to Graham Nash.
We don't need no piece of paper from the city hall, keeping us tight and true. No, my old man, keeping away my blues.
Maybe I never really loved. I guess that is the truth. I spent my whole life in clouds. Yeah, but love, not romantic love. I'm hip to romantic love. It's a trick of nature, you know. It's a joke, you know. It's funny. It amuses me at this point. But love, and the best description of what love is, which I set to music, is really just about the most valuable thing that there is, and that is the most instructive piece of writing as to what it is and what it isn't that I've ever come upon. But that's not romantic love. But when I became a woman, I put away childish things and began to see through a glass darkly. But as a child, I saw it face to face. Now I only know it in part. Fractions in me of faith and hope and love. And of these great three, love's the greatest beauty. Love's the greatest beauty. That still rings true to me, you know. You grew your hair long, you know, and you belong to that generation. And inside that haircut, there were a lot of different ideas going on.
Love, peace, and music. These are the themes held dear by the hippie generation that finds itself at the phenomenon that is Woodstock, the largest concert event of its time. It's what Joni Mitchell sings about in her song Woodstock, a tribute to this unprecedented event, which brought together more than 500,000 young people on farmland in the middle of nowhere in the Catskill Mountains in the state of New York in August 1969. These 3 days of peace and music, of 1960s counterculture, anti-war protests, and flower power, welcomed more than 32 groups and singers.
It's really amazing. You know, it looks like some kind of biblical, epical, unbelievable scene.
This thing was too big. It was too big for the world.
Between the drugs that circulated, the torrential rainfall, and a startling lack of organization, the event could easily have been a disaster. Instead, it became one of the biggest events in the history of music and the highlight of the hippie movement. All the biggest names in music are there. Joan Baez, Janis Joplin, Carlos Santana, Jimi Hendrix, and also Crosby, Stills, and Nash, just joined by Neil Young.
Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
The only artist who shines by her absence is Joni Mitchell. Her agent decided she shouldn't attend.
Well, we also knew that we were going into the big leagues and that essentially the big leagues are a shark pool. And so we thought it would be good if we had our own shark.
With help from David Crosby and her manager, Elliot Roberts, Joni Mitchell meets David Geffen, who becomes her agent and soon after, one of the most powerful men in the music industry.
First of all, I had no contracts with my clients. They could all leave at any time. As it happens, none of them ever left.
Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Joni Mitchell all sign with Geffen.
It was my job to stand like a dam against the river of shit that was coming down on these people, and I did that, and that was a difficult job. And I don't think they had a sense of how difficult it was, but I certainly did. And given how young we were, how inexperienced we were, I think we did a pretty great job.
When David Geffen tells the young Canadian woman to attend the Dick Cavett show instead of going to Woodstock, there is no discussion to be had.
We had arrived at LaGuardia Airport, and I picked up the New York Times, and it said 400,000 people sitting in mud. And I said to Joni, let's not go.
It was decided at the airport.
It was at the time the most important TV show, and Joni needed to be there.
Well, yeah, I sing mostly about love and things that I can understand. I don't understand politics, mainly because in Canada we just never do anything very political. The biggest political news that I can remember ever there was the choosing of the flag. Mm-hmm. And that took 3 years. And they chose one that none of us liked.
Fantastic
and it faded and everything. And, oh, well.
The boys weren't going to admit
Frustrated and angry at having missed this historic moment, she will express her disappointment in her own way.
We were supposed to all play in Woodstock, and I had to do a TV show the next day, so I kind of got left behind because they were having problems getting people in and getting them back out again and everything. So I stayed. By the time we got to Woodstock, we were 500,000 strong, and everywhere there was song and celebration.
Mainly because of that section that we are stardust, we are golden. It's like a mantra or something. It's like a prayer to our highest tendencies, to overcome our humanness.
We are stuck, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden.
Previously known for her introspective songs, she suddenly feels the need to denounce what America is becoming.
I remember that there was a time when the idealism of that culture was more actively present, was actually kind of working. There were 2 or 3 years where the spirit in California was really high and very pretty. After Woodstock, it took a nosedive.
In 1970, her songs become the symbol of flower power as she tackles new themes like the environment. Joni Mitchel is one of the first singers to really take up the cause with her song, Big Yellow Taxi. The hymn resounds now like a visionary warning.
They paved paradise, put up a parking lot.
With a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hotspot.
A true ecological manifesto, far ahead of its time.
Now they took all the trees, put them in a tree museum. And they charged all the people $1.50 just to see them. I said, don't it always seem to go? You don't know what you've got.
I'd gone to the Hawaiian Islands for the first time, arrived in the middle of the night. I went to the hotel, was in Oahu, it was a skyscraper. Woke up in the morning, threw back the curtains, and in the distance were green mountains and white flying birds, and I looked down, and as far as the eye could see was a parking lot. I've always been very sensitive to the natural world and ashamed of my species for its treatment of it, and that I've felt, that's my cross to bear, and that's probably the main thrust of my work, and the main pain that I suffer as a human being, more than the loss of a boyfriend or anything. I suffer because of the stupidity of our management of this planet.
She sings Big Yellow Taxi in 1970 during a concert at the Isle of Wight Festival. Dressed in a long yellow dress, she steps onto a stage in front of a wild crowd. The English festival had wanted to recreate the feeling of Woodstock, but most of the audience is on acid, and the atmosphere quickly degenerates.
I arrived at the Isle of Wight Festival with my manager and Neil Young. And Neil was also managed by Elliot Roberts. Then the festival began, which was a bit of a disaster.
The concert organizers have sold too many tickets for too much money. They were thinking too big. The site is fenced off to avoid freeriders, but they end up kicking the fences down, a far cry from the spirit of Woodstock.
This place, it stinks, man. It's nothing but money. It's not a good thing about this festival.
I approached the thing with dread and had chosen to come on late at night when it was dark so that I couldn't really see any disturbances, and with a hope that they would be quiet enough that I could hear myself. I was sitting in Donovan's trailer when the promoters came back and begged me to go on in the middle of the afternoon. Acts had pulled out, the audience was hostile, and I said faintly, no, I don't go on till 9 o'clock. They begged and pleaded, said, Joan, we have no one to go on. And I thought, oh dear, that's even worse. You got a hostile audience and they're clamoring, to be thrown some meat. So reluctantly I said, okay. And they fed me to the beast. There was this cacophony of heads along the apron as I came out. and it made me a little nervous.
You know, maybe I'm kind of weird, but you know, when I'm sitting up here and playing and I hear all those people growling out, it really puts me uptight and I forget the words and then I get nervous. It's really a drag. So, you know, I don't know what to say. Just give me a little help, will you, so that I can...
I began to sing, and to my right and about 5 rows back, a guy flipped out on, I guess, what was acid, some kind of bad drug.
Is he okay? Wait, what's...
1, 2. A doctor, please, a doctor.
And people began to stand up all over in this crowd of, what was it, 600,000 people, something like that. Enormous, bigger than a football field, surrounded by a fence that had been a point of contention for days. I wanted to run off stage. The promoters had been standing their ground. They'd tried everything to calm this audience down. They'd yelled at them. They'd pleaded with them. They'd sent in an Anglican minister, who didn't have a hope in hell. So I sat there really wanting to run and feeling that I couldn't, trying desperately to find something to latch on to say. It became very emotional, very hurt, very, very mixed emotion, complex emotion.
Listen a minute, will you? Will you listen a minute? I think that you're acting like tourists, man. Give us some respect.
After I said my little speech, the audience altered rapidly. I watched the rows back off, sit down, and they were quiet, and I came out and did another song. They gave me an encore, and at the end I was beaming because, it was a very difficult situation for a performer, and, I had come through it without cowardice, which was the natural instinct,
This festival marks the end of an era. It's one of the last great meetings of the Woodstock generation. As the decade ends, so too will the optimism that characterized the time. In 1969, while America is bogged down in Vietnam, millions of Americans stand opposed to the war, and their protests grow riotous in the face of police violence. As for the hippie movement, it sinks into hard drugs. In August of the same year in California, Charles Manson and his followers put a definitive end to the little paradise of Laurel Canyon. The Manson family's murder of actress Sharon Tate in her house in Benedict Canyon, where she lives with her husband, director Roman Polanski, traumatizes California and puts a brutal stop to the carefree attitude of the area. The hippie bubble is burst.
Among his followers, members of the family, Manson is regarded as a saint. Many call him Jesus.
A few months later, the violence spreads to the Altamont Festival, organized by the Rolling Stones. In a tragic turn of events, one person dies and dozens are injured.
That means everybody just blew out! When you blew out, everybody!
For Joni Mitchell, it's also the end of her Californian dream.
It was a very lonely time in America. It was strife-ridden. It was difficult. It was the end of America's naivety. We were the good guys up until then. We had a heroic reputation from the war, and suddenly there was trouble at home, beginning with the Kennedy assassination. The 60s were a very idealistic time for youth. very hopeful. We did believe that we could change the world. We found we couldn't change it very much at all.
Well, blue is the blues, isn't it? You know.
Marked by these events and gripped by doubt and disillusionment, Joni Mitchell cancels her concerts and goes into exile. She tours Europe, from Greece to Ibiza, passing through Paris. She's in search of inspiration, and she'll find it in her album, Blue. Blue is the blues. It's melancholy. It's her most personal and introspective album.
During the making of Blue, I was just so thin-skinned and delicate that if anybody looked at me, I'd burst into tears. I was so vulnerable and I felt so naked in my work.
Everybody's saying that hell's a hippie's way to go. Well, I don't think so, but I'm gonna take a look around at the blue.
It's overwhelming. Blue is an overwhelming album.
There is a song for you to ink on a pin underneath the skin.
All of a sudden, there's this woman coming along who's writing about personal relationships on a very profound level. And it was deeply affecting. She changed the way I wrote because I realized that it was okay to talk about what was happening in your heart so that other people could go, I know exactly what you're saying. It happened to me the other day, you know, those kind of songs.
Her European escape was not enough to calm her anguish. She can no longer stand show business or the music industry, both of which she criticizes in her song, River.
Stays pretty green. I'm gonna make a lot of money, then I'm gonna quit this crazy scene. I wish I had a river I could skate away on.
I isolated myself, and I made my attempt to get back to the garden. I moved up into the Canadian backbush to a small sanctuary where I could be alone, lived with kerosene, stayed away from electricity for about a year. I turned to nature. I was going down, and with that came a tremendous sense of knowing nothing. Western psychology might call it a nervous breakdown, but in certain cultures, they call it a shamanic conversion. Every time you change, you have to be ready to experience massive rejection, you know, so you have to be strong.
The 70s are a turning point for Joni Mitchell. Her album, Court and Spark, released in 1974, is a critical and commercial success that allows her to settle into a superb hacienda in the hills of Los Angeles. Whereas 10 years earlier, she could barely afford a guitar, now she's a businesswoman who controls her music from writing to production.
The need to innovate or to be fresh or to be original is very strong in me.
She could have continued to sing in the same register, but instead, she decides to radically change her style. Gone is the pure and high voice. Instead, her tone becomes more serious, and her musical style evolves to match. She ventures into a sound more reminiscent of rock and jazz.
The big man, he's not listening.
I started in the business as a soprano because I'm a mimic at heart. I came in mimicking, you know, the music of that particular time, which was folk music. I am not a folk musician either, which is another mistake I'd like to clear up. I was a folk singer in 1964. I sang folk songs. The moment I began to write my own music, I was a composer. And I had a 3-octave range, so if you listen to my first album, there is alto work on there. Then the second, third, and fourth, I went further into the soprano area and finally gave myself nodes when I started singing rock and roll in a soprano voice. So I blew out the top register.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joni Mitchell.
Her album, The Hissing of Summer Lawns, released in 1975, is a scathing criticism of American society and tackles new issues, such as feminism. She speaks about the alienation of women, especially those who are trapped in gilded cages in the suburbs.
Bought her a diamond for her throat. He put her in a ranch house on the hill. She could see the valley barbecues from her windowsill. See the blue pools in the squinting sun. Hear the hissing of summer lawns.
At that point, I had gotten used to being a cottage industry, you know, sitting in kind of comfortable obscurity. From the time that Hissing of Summer Lawns was released, and it was described that I had entered into jazz, which wasn't entirely true. The jazz community didn't see it as jazz. It didn't bear any resemblance to jazz forms. I was in a kind of a no man's land as far as programming went. It didn't slot. You know, pop music now is opened up to embrace some jazz coloration still in the pop context, but then it didn't. So by the time I got to Mingus, I was used to disappointments, you know. Hissing was the worst. After that, you know, you just said, oh.
Despite this criticism, Joni Mitchell continues to experiment with new sounds and new collaborations. For her albums Hygieia and Mingus, she surrounds herself with eclectic jazz players such as Jaco Pastorius, Charles Mingus, Wayne Shorter, and Herbie Hancock.
I'm down to roll at times. I'm stalking the slot that's hot. I keep hearing
I had tried all along to add other musicians to my music. Nearly every bass player that I tried did the same thing. They would put up a dark picket fence through my music. And I thought, why does it have to go plotty, plotty, plotty? Finally, one guy said to me, Joni, you better play with jazz musicians. People say my music is jazz. I made one jazz record, that was with Mingus. Mingus's music is jazz, but my harmony, any jazzer will tell you, is not. Like Wayne Shorter would say, well, these are not piano chords and these are not guitar chords. What are these chords? That's what he said on Ethiopia, which is, and then, you know, so the harmony, like a painter, when you juxtapose color against color, if you use colors of the same value, you create a vibration. You do the same thing when you get, that's 60s psychedelic poster art. If you run a second through your music, you get the same thing. When I was in art school, I said, never use colors of the same value beside each other because they'll cause a vibration.
And there were two brand new little musicians dancing there.
I wanted to make a record that was unlike anything that I had ever heard. And one of the ways to go about that was I wanted every one of us to be playing off the other. The drums weren't really keeping strict time. They were playing expressively. And as a result, it's kind of a Jackson Pollock. It's very free. Everything is interwoven. You'll hear the drummer play off the bass, or he'll play off of the horn, or he'll play off of my voice. There's a lot of keen listening going on, even though everything is kind of flying around. It's very alert and spontaneous.
She was very disappointed when people did not understand her change of musical direction. And I think it brought Joan a lot of pain that she wasn't seen as the creative, free-form artist that she really is. She was pigeonholed into being this blonde folk singer image that she has been trying to escape for years and years and years and years.
What is music? Chords are colors that depict the current state of your emotionality. If you can paint with a brush, you can paint with words.
The notes are like colors that replace the words. Over the years, Joni Mitchell has always continued to paint. As a teenager, she often sang to pay for her paints and dreamed of being a great artist. In fact, she painted most of her own album covers. Her art and her music are intrinsically linked.
This is more like music. This is kind of like just running the chords. This is harmony, color juxtaposition, the big beat. I mean, just this is chaos. All this is a lot of things coming at each other. It's a war zone. Yeah. This is my tribute to Jackson Pollock, and I splattered all over it. So what you think? Is it a miss or is it a masterpiece? It's hard to tell. Only the great art experts know for sure. This was to be the album cover, and it inherits the same name, Dog Eat Dog, that's what this is called.
In 1985, in the middle of the Reagan era, she releases her album Dog Eat Dog, in which she continues to sing about her disillusionment with the American dream, criticizing the fundamentalist and evangelist right wing, as well as the materialism of Americans.
It's mostly the rhythm that I think people will find different. Melodically, then there's a whole Joni's angry, a lot of political ranting and raving, you know.
She sings out her anger in Ethiopia, which comes out in 1985, the same year as Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones's famous charity anthem, We Are the World.
I think that my work has always been realistic. I think I've worked with the times at hand. The times, it is not me that has gotten pessimistic. It's the times that have gotten more difficult. You know, I'm just a witness.
Caught in the middle, Carol, we're middle class, we're middle age, we were wild in the old days, birth of rock and roll days.
I think people would like me to just be introverted and bleed for them forever. You know, they would be most happy if I would do that. You know, but you have to grow. The climate when I wrote, you know, my early work in California was so very different. It wasn't this way in the 60s, so society has changed all around me.
The world has changed, but Joni Mitchell still refuses to compromise. She will never stop trying to evolve. In the 80s, she abandoned jazz to try a more pop sound, but these albums were never as successful as she hoped. It wasn't until the 90s, and in particular the release of her album Turbulent Indigo, that she returned to the issues that were close to her heart, such as domestic violence, which she addressed in her song Not to Blame.
The story hit the news from coast to coast. They said you beat the girl you loved the most. The charitable acts seemed out of place. The beauty with your fist marks on her face.
The album was a huge success, but on the cover of the album, she painted herself as Van Gogh, a metaphor that evokes the malaise she felt, wounded by the music industry that cast her aside and no longer felt like home. Despite the success of this album, Joni Mitchell has moved away from music. A few albums of compilations and covers punctuated the 2000s, but these days she generally prefers retirement and devotes herself to painting in the company of her newfound daughter and grandchildren. As she already expressed in her song Blue, her songs are like tattoos of her life.
Ominous, inquiry, doubt, possibility, resolution.
We are stardust, we are golden, we are blue-colored, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. Well, then can I walk beside you? I have come to lose the smile, and I feel myself in something turning. And maybe it's the time of year. Yes, and maybe it's the time of man. And I don't know who I am, but life is for learning. We are stardust, we are golden, we are blue-colored, and we got to get ourselves back to the We are stardust, we are golden, we are blue-colored, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden. By the time we got to Woodstock, we were heavily strong, and everywhere was a song and a celebration. And I dreamed I saw the bomber death planes riding shotgun in the sky, turning into butterflies above our nation. We are stardust, we are golden, we are